An old man, silver-haired, wearing a torn coat, sits silently at a bus stop. A police officer approaches, and 30 seconds later, the man is hit with a taser. But what no one expected was that just 6 minutes later, a rapid response team from the Pentagon showed up. Not because he was a politician, not because he was a threat, but because he was a veteran, a part of a covert program never before disclosed. And this story is one of those veteran stories that silenced an entire nation. This wasn't just a personal incident. This is why justice for veterans exists, to tell the stories society chose to forget. Who was he? And why did a single press of a keychain trigger a Pentagon-level alert? 6:0 a.m. A dimly lit room. A 78-year-old man makes coffee and folds a blanket on an old sofa. On a scratched wooden table lies a navy medal and a silver keychain. He stares at it, like gazing into a forgotten chapter of his life. Franklin Delaney once commanded electronic signals off-coast during the Cold War. Now, he lives alone, unseen, unremembered. He puts on an old sweater, locks the door, leaves his cheap apartment on South End to visit the VA clinic, the only place that still calls him Sergeant. Like every day, he takes the bus. But today, at stop 215, it won't be like every other day. The bus stop sits next to a nearly empty convenience store. Autumn wind drifts through his silver hair. Frank Delaney rests on a bench, holding a worn hardcover book. Passersby ignore him. A few glance, indifferent. One young man mutters, "Just another homeless guy." Frank stays silent. His hands tremble with age, but his eyes follow the digital screen counting down to the 215 bus. Same time, same seat. No one notices. No one waits. In his hand, the silver keychain reflects the morning sun. Then, the sound of a police siren. Black boots stop right in front of him. A cold voice speaks out. "Sir, you can't sit here." The officer's tone is sharp, not violent, but impatient. Frank looks up slowly. "I'm waiting for the 215, like I always do." "You've been reported loitering. People feel unsafe." Frank blinks, confused. "I served this country. I bled for this ground. Now I'm a threat?" The officer sighs. "Stand up. Show me some ID." Frank reaches into his coat, slowly pulling out his worn VA card. But his hand shakes. The card drops. The officer's hand moves fast. Taser deployed. Frank's body collapses. The metal hits the concrete with a metallic clang. His keychain slides across the sidewalk and clicks. What looked like a simple silver keychain wasn't. Inside that keychain was a micro-reactive signal device. Once activated, it transmitted a signal to a secure channel no civilian was ever meant to access. A relic from a program so secret, it never made it into archives. Codename, Spectre, Echo, Cold War reconnaissance, biometrics, field agents, neural coding. Frank Delaney wasn't just a veteran. He was one of 7 operators with field access to Spectre Echo's fallback alert. And now after 34 years, the Pentagon had just received that signal. Active. Live. 6 minutes after the taser shot, a black SUV screeched to a halt in front of the bus stop. 3 men in suits, no badges, no hesitation. One kneels beside Frank. "Sir, this is Commander Ellis. We received your signal." The officer stands frozen, confused. What the hell is going on? The lead agent flashes a card, DOD Special Access Only. "You just triggered a Tier 5 veteran protocol. Step back." They lift Frank gently, his heart still fluttering. "We're taking him to secure medical. And you'll be getting a call." The taser wires still hang from Frank's sweater. But now, the nation's deepest system had just reawakened because of him. The black SUV speeds through morning traffic. Inside silence. Frank, still weak, rests his head on the agent's shoulder. Ellis speaks softly, almost reverently. "Sir, Spectre, Echo was officially dissolved in '91, but the failsafe was never removed. Frank blinks, his voice hoarse. I never thought I'd have to use it. Ellis nods. You trained us. You gave us the tools, and when that signal hit, all protocols snapped into place. You're not forgotten. Frank closes his eyes. For the first time in decades, someone remembered who he was. Inside Fort Argus, a base known only to those with the highest clearance, Frank Delaney is wheeled into a classified medical bay. Dozens of encrypted systems reactivate. Files marked obsolete turn green. Surveillance rooms fill with faces that had once served under him. A colonel leans in. Sir, we reviewed the footage. That officer didn't know who you were. Frank answers, tired but steady. That's the point. No one knows anymore. And for a brief second, every soldier in that room feels it. Not anger, but shame. Within 24 hours, the Department of Defense launches an internal review. Not because of public pressure, not because of a lawsuit, but because a Spectre Echo operator was harmed on American soil. The officer involved is suspended, security footage is seized, and the Pentagon quietly prepares a closed-door hearing. At its center, how could a national hero with top clearance legacy be tased like a criminal? And why did it take a Cold War relic to remind the nation who he was? Justice would have to move quickly. Because Frank Delaney wasn't just any veteran. He was a silent cornerstone of American history. The story was never meant to go public, but someone leaked the footage. A bystander's phone captured the moment Frank was tased. The clip went viral. Millions saw an old man collapse. But it was the next 6 minutes that shook the internet. The black SUV, the agents, the silence. Speculation exploded. Who was he? Why did federal agents rush in like that? Within hours, hashtags trended. Justice for Frank, forgotten veteran. Spectre Echo. America wasn't just watching, it was remembering. Frank's son, Major Caleb Delaney, had been stationed in Okinawa. The video reached him at 3:12 a.m. He watched it twice, then booked the next flight back. Landing in D.C., still in uniform, Caleb walked straight into the Pentagon. I don't care about protocols, he said. That's my father, and the fact no one recognized him is why this country needs a wake-up call. He didn't ask for revenge. He asked for a podium, and 3 days later, he got one. A closed-door hearing. Dozens of officers, a few cameras, reluctantly allowed. Major Delaney took the microphone. His voice was steady, cold. My father was part of a program that never existed on paper. He carried secrets no civilian will ever understand. He trained men who now run the very systems we depend on. He held up the VA card. This is all he had to prove his service, and it wasn't enough. Then, looking straight into the lens, America cannot pretend to honor veterans one day and forget them the next. Frank Delaney is not an exception. He is the warning. The next morning, Secretary of Defense Michael Hanford made an unannounced visit to Fort Argus. No press, no ceremony, just one mission: to look Frank Delaney in the eye. He entered the medical wing, saluted, then sat beside Frank's bed and said, "Sir, I'm sorry, not just for what happened at that bus stop, but for how long this nation left men like you behind." Frank didn't say much. He didn't need to. He just nodded once and whispered, "It wasn't about me. It was about remembering." 2 days later, in a quiet Pentagon hall, a ceremony took place. No media, no live stream, just black suits, uniforms, and a folded flag. Frank Delaney was formally reinstated to his rank, his service declassified, his record restored. Major Caleb stood by his side. A tear ran down his cheek as he whispered, "They remember, Dad. They finally remember." Then, for the first time in 40 years, Frank Delaney saluted. And every single soldier in that room returned it. Frank Delaney passed away quietly 2 weeks later. No pain, no regrets, but his story lived on, in classrooms, in training manuals, in the way one nation finally asked, "What does justice for veterans really mean?" at bus stops across the country. New plaques were installed engraved with his name, a silent reminder. The man they forgot was the man who once protected everything they remembered. This is one of those veteran stories the world needs to hear, and Justice for Veterans will keep telling them until no one is left forgotten.